NASCAR blocked him. The fans exploded. The garage laughed. And then Cletus McFarland went out, ran 7th at Kansas, nearly finished 2nd at Talladega, and pulled 100,000 live viewers to a YouTube stream that may have outdrew the actual race on FS1. Now he is heading to Nashville on May 30th, and the people who said he did not belong are running out of arguments. That is the sentence that defines everything happening right now around Cletus McFarland and his journey through NASCAR's ladder system. A rejection was supposed to pump the brakes on this story. Instead, it poured fuel on it. The spotlight got brighter, the fan base got louder, and the next race, May 30th at Nashville Superspeedway, became more important than anything he has done inside a NASCAR car. So here is everything you need to know. The Talladega denial, what Rockingham actually told us, why Kyle Petty's reaction matters more than most people realize, what happened at Kansas that almost nobody is talking about, and exactly what Nashville means for where Cletus McFarland stands right now in professional motorsport. Some people still look at this situation and see a YouTube guy who got a lucky break. That framing is not just wrong. It misses the entire point of why this story keeps growing. His real name is Garrett Mitchell. He is 31 years old, originally from Omaha, Nebraska. He built one of the largest automotive YouTube channels in the currently sitting at over 4.7 million subscribers through burnout videos, engine swaps, and an unfiltered passion for anything that runs on four wheels. He purchased an abandoned racetrack in Bradenton, Florida, transformed it into the Freedom Factory, and has spent years constructing his own motorsports universe from the ground up. This is not a man who woke up one morning and decided NASCAR would be a good place to go viral. He has been working his way through ARCA, logging real seat time, absorbing real punishment, and learning how to drive race cars at a competitive level. He signed a legitimate multi-race deal with Richard Childress Racing, one of the most storied teams in NASCAR history. That partnership did not happen because of subscriber count. It happened because RCR looked at his trajectory and saw something worth investing in. Every debate about whether Cletus McFarland belongs in NASCAR's National Series ladder lives or dies on a single question. Is he taking this seriously? Everything that has happened in 2026 answers that question clearly. After his O'Reilly Auto Parts Series debut at Rockingham Speedway on April 4th, Richard Childress Racing had plans to put Cletus behind the wheel at Talladega Superspeedway. The plan made sense from a visibility standpoint. Talladega is one of the most iconic tracks in motorsport. The fan base engagement would have been enormous. NASCAR said no. When that decision became public, it split the entire fan base down the middle. On NASCAR's side, the reasoning was not complicated. John Probst, NASCAR's executive vice president and chief racing development officer, addressed it directly. The approval process works race by race. Progression must be demonstrated before a driver advances to more dangerous environments. Talladega is not a classroom. It is a 2.66-mile superspeedway where cars run in tight packs at nearly 200 miles per hour, and a single mistake does not just affect the driver who made it. It can eliminate a dozen cars in under a second. Probst made NASCAR's position clear in plain terms. It's not NASCAR saying no. We're just saying we want to see more first, Probst said. When you look back at what we've asked other drivers to do, we're asking him to do something very similar and to show he's progressing. He's on the steep side of the learning curve. We will progress him as fast as we can, but in a very meaningful way that doesn't get him in a bad situation. That is a measured, defensible position. Superspeedway racing requires a completely different skill set than short track racing. Drafting in tight packs at those speeds demands instincts that only come from accumulated experience. NASCAR's job is to protect every driver on that track, not just Cletus. But on the fan side, logic did not dominate the conversation. Many people saw a man who clearly loves the sport, who brings millions of eyes to whatever he is involved in, who went out at Rockingham, took his lumps, and finished the race, and they felt the standard being applied to him was harder, harsher, and more publicly scrutinized than it would have been for anyone else. That emotional reaction is exactly why this story exploded the way it did. It was never really just about one race at one track. It became a debate about whether popularity belongs in the conversation at all when NASCAR is handing out opportunity. Probst acknowledged the tension directly. If it was just about clicks and dollars, we had an easy decision with Cletus, but it's not about that, Probst said. It's just making sure that we're doing right for him as a driver and as a human being to make sure that when we say you're ready, that we feel in all our hearts that he is ready. That is not a simple yes or no situation. NASCAR is simultaneously balancing risk, safety, legitimacy, and fan growth, all through decisions made about one driver. Nobody inside the sport pretends that is easy. When people look at the Rockingham result on paper, the first instinct is to call it rough. And in terms of finishing position, it was. Cletus McFarland finished 32nd in a 38-car field, 6 laps down. He spun out on lap 206, bringing out the 7th caution flag of the race. On the surface, those numbers do not impress anyone. But the surface is not where the real story lives. He qualified 35th. He completed all 250 laps. He finished ahead of 5 other drivers. He did not collect anyone. He did not destroy his equipment. He did not make himself a problem for the leaders. And in one of the more telling moments of the entire race, when Jesse Love was in the process of lapping him, Cletus actually tucked in behind Love, studied his line through the corner, and immediately corrected something he had been doing wrong throughout the afternoon. That is how a driver learns. That is exactly what NASCAR said they wanted to see. Cletus himself captured it precisely after crossing the finish line. Got my butt kicked, but I finished the race, he said. That phrase, "but I finished," carries more weight than it might seem. A driver with no business being in that field at that level of competition does not complete 250 laps. A driver just there for content does not study the line of the driver lapping him and make an adjustment. The Rockingham result was rough by every statistical measure, and it was also exactly the kind of debut that justifies continuing the process. He also ran the ARCA Menard Series East race at Rockingham the same weekend, finishing 4th, a career-best result at that point across any NASCAR sanction. He completed 369 of his scheduled 375 laps across both races that Saturday. That is not the output of someone treating a professional racing series as a content opportunity. Before Rockingham, Kyle Petty had been one of the loudest critical voices around the entire situation. Petty questioned the message it sent to have someone with that little traditional experience jumping into NASCAR's National Series. He said point blank that internet followers should not substitute for the development process. He was not alone. Kyle Busch had already come out publicly questioning the deal, at one point suggesting his own 10-year-old son had probably run more races than Cletus had at that point. These were not fringe opinions. These were credible voices from inside the sport making pointed criticism. Then Rockingham happened. After the race, Petty changed his tone completely. "If you're going to criticize, you've got to give credit," Petty said. Cletus did what he needed to do. He ran every lap. He didn't tear anything up. He didn't really get in anybody's way. And that's what he needed to do to shut up guys like me. Read that carefully. Petty did not become a believer overnight. He did not suddenly declare that Cletus McFarland is destined for the Cup Series. What he did was move from flat-out dismissal to qualified acknowledgement. And in NASCAR's garage culture, where respect is earned slowly and skepticism runs deep, that kind of shift from a credible critic is genuinely significant. The criticism did not disappear after Rockingham. It evolved. It moved from "why is he here at all" to "okay, prove it to me." Those are completely different conversations. One closes the door. The other keeps it open with conditions attached. For someone at Cletus McFarland's stage of development inside a professional motorsport structure, keeping that door open is the entire game. Between the Rockingham debut and the Nashville announcement, Cletus McFarland made a start in the ARCA Menard Series race at Kansas Speedway. And this is the piece of the story that most coverage has glossed over. He started 25th when inclement weather washed out qualifying and the field was set by points. He moved up 11 positions in the first 5 laps. By the halfway break, he was running 11th. He continued making progress, reaching as high as 7th after executing a 3-wide pass on a mid-race reset. At an intermediate track in the ARCA Menard Series, starting from the back of the field, running 7th is not a minor detail. Then the engine let go. With about 25 laps remaining, the motor failed in a plume of white smoke and dumped oil across the front stretch. Andy Jankowiak and Isabella Robusto, running directly behind him, crashed in the oil and hit the wall. Cletus himself kept the car together while sliding sideways through his own oil in turns 1 and 2, a moment that showed genuine car control under a situation that had no good option. His reaction after the race said everything about his mindset. "Did you see that drift through the entire turn 1 and 2? That was awesome," he said. Overall, I had a blast. I made it 75 laps though, so that's pretty good. If we had blown the motor at 50, I probably would have shed a tear. But I made it through 75% of the race, so I'll call it a win. That is not the reaction of someone measuring success by social media metrics. That is a racing driver identifying what went right inside a race that ended in mechanical failure, extracting the positives, and framing it as information for the next. More importantly, Kansas gave NASCAR something that Rockingham alone could not provide. Proof of pace at an intermediate track. The approval process is race by race. Officials look at the body of a run that reached 7th at Kansas before the engine failed almost certainly played a direct role in NASCAR clearing Cletus McFarland for Nashville. On April 20th, RCR confirmed on X with 4 words, "He's back." Cletus McFarland is officially returning to the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series on May 30th at Nashville Superspeedway, driving the number 33 Tommy's Express Car Wash Chevrolet. The race, the Sports Illustrated Resorts 250, airs at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the CW network. Nashville Superspeedway measures 1.33 miles and it is a concrete D-shaped oval that carries characteristics of both intermediate and short track racing. The corner speeds are lower than a track like Talladega or Daytona. RCR viewed it as a logical next step, a track that challenges Cletus without placing him in an environment he is not prepared for. According to reporting, RCR looked at Nashville as a safe bet, given the slower speeds. Cletus himself acknowledged the fit. He said he is doing a significant amount of training with RCR simulator time leading up to the race. "I'm going to be doing a lot of training with RCR, a lot of simulator time. Really looking forward to getting back out on the track in the O'Reilly's car. A lot of power. Got a dial in my turning lefts," he said. What makes Nashville fundamentally different from Rockingham is not just the track layout. It is the existence of a baseline. After Rockingham, the question was simply whether he could survive a race. After Kansas, the question became how fast he actually. At Nashville, there will be a result to compare, a pace to measure, and a clearer picture of how much genuine progress is. The stakes are higher now because the story is louder. The Talladega controversy amplified everything. His ARCA run at Talladega, where he finished second, led laps, and had an in-car YouTube stream that peaked at over 100,000 concurrent viewers, demonstrated that both his audience and his on-track ability are developing simultaneously. For context, Jeff Gluck noted during the race that the YouTube in-car stream may have been pulling more viewers than the actual race on FM. The NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series itself posted a 6% viewership increase year over year through the first stretch of the 2026 season, with a 13% jump from the prior week's Kansas race to the Talladega broadcast. The ARCA race at Talladega, featuring Cletus and fellow content creator Squirrel McNutt, drew 446,000 average viewers, a 41% increase from the same race in 2025. These numbers do not exist in a vacuum. Cletus McFarland is generating audience for a racing series that needs it, while simultaneously working through a legitimate driver development process. And he has already stated his longer-term goal publicly. He is working toward Daytona, targeting a spring start at the 2.5-mile superspeedway. The path is clear. Rockingham proved he could finish. Kansas proved he had pace. Nashville is where both of those things get tested together on a different track, with a brighter spotlight, and with the credibility of everyone involved, Cletus, RCR, and NASCAR's approval process itself on the line. The denial at Talladega did not slow this story down. It made Nashville the most important race Cletus McFarland has ever entered in a NASCAR car. And on May 30th, the sport is going to find out exactly what that means.